Okay, welcome everyone to episode 20 of Ty's Training Talking with My Dad. It is May 21st, 2025, and we are recording here at Everest Base Camp our pre-summit episode. I'm Ty, and here as always with my co-host and father Tim Andrews, aka Mr. C, for another look at training and life ahead of Project Himalaya Run Everest. Mr. C, I know it is very early where you are and you're on vacation, so I appreciate you doing this. We'll kind of dive into the questions, but give us a quick lowdown on how the vacation has been going so far.
It's been fantastic. We are in the UK touring gardens because, as you know, your mother and I are avid amateur gardeners. So this has been a trip we planned on for a long time. And we've been very lucky because we've had not very British weather that most people think about. It's actually been pretty warm and pretty sunny for the last week. So we've had a terrific time. And now we're in an area called the Cotswolds that we just got to, and we're going to see some more gardens starting today over here. So we're very excited and having
Excellent.
a great time.
Glad to hear it. And yeah, stoked to see you guys in a couple of weeks when I'm back in the States and hear all about it even more.
Yeah, we're excited. Okay, give us the lowdown and let's get started.
Yeah, I think let's just dive into the questions. You've got the list there, and let's
I
give
do.
people what they want.
Okay. All right. So first, what's the plan now?
Yeah, so we're here at Everest Base Camp, and right now, like I said, it's May 21st, and the plan is we are going for our second summit bid on Mount Everest, speed record with no oxygen, and that will be happening on May 23rd, which really means leaving here from base camp probably about midnight-ish, late night on the 22nd into very early morning of May 23rd, and then trying to stand on the summit sometime between the late morning and early afternoon on the 23rd. So that's the plan as of right now. Obviously things can change, but we're pretty close. We actually, right after this podcast, we have our check-in with our Dr. Carl. I can't remember what his last name is, but we call him Weather Carl because we have a lot of Carls on this project. So we're talking to Weather Carl in about 45 minutes, and we'll get the final kind of approval from him in terms of what the best time of day is tomorrow to be on the summit. He's a super pro guy and has been doing this for 30 or 40 years. And so he can literally dial down to like, okay, you want to be on the summit, between 2 and 3 p.m. or something like that, in terms of wind, in terms of temperature, in terms of precipitation. And then also, like you and I have talked about lots of times, kind of what the turnaround time is so that we have that margin of safety as well. So yeah, that's the plan. All systems go right now for tomorrow night and summiting on the 23rd.
Great. And so just to remind people, that's Nepal time. So you can Google Nepal time to get your local time. In the US, it's about 10 hours or so ahead of US time, and where we are about 5 hours ahead in the UK. So you can check your local time zone and Google time in Nepal, and you'll find out what time it is and do the translation. Great. Okay. So for those who missed it, or might have missed the quick solo recap you did before on your first attempt, give us the quick version, the SparkNotes version of what happened on May 11th and what you're planning to do differently this time.
Right. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, we do have a short episode that I recorded solo last week after that first attempt. So the original plan was, like we've been talking about for months, basically go super early as possible, right after the rope fixers, who were the first guys to go to the summit. Our plan was to go the next day, and that actually worked out. All the timing worked out really well. Our teams got in place. Dallas Steven here at Asian Trekking did a fantastic job of getting everything ready for that. And honestly, everything was feeling pretty good. I'd been sick at the end of April and was feeling like I was almost 100% ready to go. Chris was feeling good. I was feeling good. And basically, long story short, I won't rehash that entire episode, but we had pretty serious gear failure on the mountain. One of my boots, we actually broke the zipper as we were trying to pull it up, and that's a pretty critical piece of equipment when you're between 7,000 and 8,800 meters. Keeping your feet dry and warm is it's a non-starter if that's not happening. So there were a couple other small things that happened, but I'd say that was kind of the really catastrophic failure of the day. Everything up to that point in terms of like the splits were going really, really well. I was moving really quickly. Times were good. We had a little bit more stoppage time than we planned, both lower down and then obviously to deal with that boot. And we basically like MacGyvered it with a plastic bag and continued up for another couple hours. But it was clear that just wasn't going to happen that day for a variety of reasons. So Dowa actually was the one who made the call to turn around when we did, which was around 7,800 meters just below Camp 4. And honestly, it was a really, really good call to do that because I came down and just felt great. So I was really glad he turned me around when he did. And yeah, in terms of what we're doing differently this time, I think it's really just having wear tested all the gear one more time, having systems a little bit more dialed. The really big change, I think, is to try and minimize that stoppage time instead of having the first stop be at Camp 2, which actually we have our cool map right behind us. But instead of having that be at Camp 2, which is 6-5, we're going to have that big stop at Camp 3. So that gives us a really nice, long, uninterrupted stretch at the beginning to just move quickly. It's the lowest part of the mountain, so it's the easiest to move the quickest on. And the plan is to just get all the way up to Camp 3 in about 4.5 hours, and then take a longer break there to kind of change into the higher mountain gear. And then go from there up to Camp 4, and then from Camp 4 to the summit. So I'd say that's the really significant change. But mostly it's like, yeah, don't break really important stuff on summit day is probably the biggest thing that we're trying to do, or I guess not do in this case.
Yep, yep. And I will tell you that Valerie and I are very happy that Dawa is on your team. And while we're very
Yeah.
anxious in general about this, fairly risky activity, we sleep better knowing that Dawa is on your team. So you can pass that along to him.
Good. I will definitely tell him that. Yeah, Dawa is the man. And I also feel better on the mountain knowing that Dawa is in my corner and like making big decisions for us.
Yep. Okay. So now that it's been 10 days since the last time you made the attempt, and now you're within 36 hours from the second attempt, how have things gone in between, and what's your training been like during these last 10 days?
I was super bummed to come down when I did it. Like, I obviously wanted it to go that day and just have it, you know, this manifestation
Sure.
of all this really hard work and like mental preparation and logistical preparation that you put so much into it. So there was this, kind of few hours of just feeling really sorry for myself and being super bummed. And then pretty much as soon as I got down and got a meal in me and had a really good night's sleep, I just started feeling way better. And I don't know if this is a physiological reaction to having gone up the mountain pretty high and just put my body through a lot, and then maybe it's kind of overcompensating. But I've felt the best I've felt the whole block in the last 7 days, probably. And you and I were talking in I think 2 episodes ago about all the kind of like heart rate and heart rate variability and the kind of metrics we were looking at when I was sick and CARE and like how that was making me a little anxious, and like all that stuff is gone. Like my heart rate variability is super high. My heart rate is back down in the 40s, even here at 5,300 meters. And that's been super exciting to see just because yeah, and even like on my training days, like everything just it feels better. Like I feel like I have more energy. My body feels good. Nothing is sore. That weird back spasm thing I had is gone. So it's just like everything. I think it's a silver lining in that, you know, like I said, obviously I wanted it to go that day, but now 36 hours from when I'm going to start, I feel so much better and more confident than I did last time in terms of just physical fitness, and then that leading into mental fitness and confidence and all those things. Like I have so much more confidence now than I did before the last attempt. And I guess the other thing I'll add to that is, the fact that I was able to go up, we've talked about splits and how I map out times and stuff, and having them on a spreadsheet is one thing, and then being able to actually go do those first 3 or 4 really important sections and hit them like right on and having it feel pretty good, even when I probably wasn't 100% that day, like that makes, again, it's just like so much more confidence having done it versus having just mapped it out and saying, okay, I think this is feasible. But having actually gone and seen those times on the watch is like a totally different thing. And now it's like, okay, I just have to go do that again and just keep going for like another 10 hours or something.
The easy part.
Yeah. Just keep walking uphill.
Yep. So we're going to talk a little bit about EBC, or Everest Base Camp, but I can't help but noticing you pointed out that map behind you, that map is moving back and forth.
Yeah, we're in a tent,
So,
so it's windy.
yeah, you're in a windy tent, I would say, in Everest Base
Yep.
Camp. So beyond living in a tent, you mentioned not wanting to spend a lot of time at EBC. Why is that? And what might surprise people listening in about what life is like at Everest Base Camp?
Yeah, I mean, the original plan was to only be here for a few days, and that obviously got thrown out as soon as we had to, come back down and look at a second attempt. I actually thought about going downhill a little bit and to one of the kind of warmer, lower altitude towns. But it was one of these things where the weather forecast was pretty dynamic. So we originally were like, oh, it might be as soon as like the 15th, and then it was the 20th, and then it was the 22nd, now it's the 23rd. So we just never really felt like we quite had the window to make it worthwhile going down for a few days to recover. So yeah, we've been here for a little while longer. And yeah, I mean, I've kind of like shit talked a little bit before about just like EBC is not my favorite place. It's really crowded. It's really high. And like there's not a ton of great places to train. Most of the uphill from here is pretty dangerous. Like you have Kumbu Icefall and you have Pumori, both of which are pretty like not great places to hang out for a tremendous amount of time. So it's we're making do, but it's yeah, it was definitely not part of the plan. But here at like life at actual base camp, like in our tents and stuff is super comfortable. And that's one of the nice things, for where we are at 5,300 meters, like the fact that even you and I can record a podcast together is pretty incredible with like video and audio. It's pretty wild
Yeah.
that we're in the middle of the Himalaya, like stone's throw from Mount Everest, and we can do this. Is pretty cool. So, we have Wi-Fi, we have electricity, we have like really good food. Raj Kumar is our head cook. Been the cook for the last 3 expeditions I've been on, and he's incredible, makes great stuff. So it's a very, very comfortable setup as much as I bitch about it. It's mostly just like, yeah, the training part is a little bit tricky. And yeah, it's for me, I think there's a really big difference between Kare, which is like 4,900 meters, and EBC, which is 5,300. It's that 400 meters, 1,500 feet makes a really big difference. In terms of what would like surprise people the most, I think honestly the amount that the climate changes in a single day. Like it gets unbelievably hot here when the sun is out. Not right now because it's cloudy, but it goes from way below freezing at night, like in my tent. I have a little thermometer to during the day it's just absolutely roasting during the day. And even as you go higher up onto the glacier, it gets even hotter and hotter. So I think that was one of the for sure the most surprising things to me when I first came for my first few expeditions was just how hot it gets so high up. Camp two at 6,500 meters. Chris and I had to spend an afternoon there on the way down from my first attempt, and it's like being in an oven. You're just like getting roasted from all angles by the sun reflecting off the glaciers, and there's no wind. Yeah, I don't know what the temperature is there, but it's unbelievably hot. During the day here, my little thermometer will read like 85 degrees in my tent, and then it'll be like 10
Wow.
degrees overnight. Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's just
Wow.
unbelievable how harsh the transition from hot to cold can be. And yeah, other than that, I think, it's it's a pretty comfortable place. It's like a small town, honestly, during climbing season. We're kind of at the tail end here, so it's starting to get broken down. A lot of teams are already heading out. We're seeing a lot of yak teams, a lot of Sherpa carrying really huge loads of stuff out of camp because this gets broken down every single year. When we leave, or I guess when the last people leave, everything will be gone, and then it will be gone until next March, a year from now. So it's pretty wild.
Uh-huh.
It's like, it's like a music festival or something where they just mount it and then it's all gone after a month.
Uh-huh. And what makes it more uncomfortable being that 400 meters higher up? Is it sleeping? Is it just walking around? Is it everything?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. The sleep for sure is affected. I find this trip I've actually slept better. For whatever reason, could be like the hypoxic stuff that we've been doing, that I'm a little bit better acclimated. But I remember like last year on Lhotse against the same base camp here, and just feeling like we were never, like I just never felt like I slept well, like a single night. Whereas like in Kare, I felt like I could just live there forever. Here, it very much feels a little bit more ephemeral, like we're just visitors, and like I don't want to spend too much time here.
Okay, great. And that is amazing. So I guess it makes some sense because it's kind of like a desert at one level because the air is
Exactly.
thin and the sun, when it's out, you're literally at plane flying altitude. So, close to it anyway. So,
Yep,
yeah, so the sun can have an enormous impact in a hurry as it does in a desert. Hmm.
for sure.
Okay, so tell us how you're feeling physically and mentally compared to, you said a little bit about this, so
Yeah.
we can go through this quickly if you don't have much more to add, but how are you feeling generally, physically and mentally?
Physically, I think, like I said, it's been interesting. I think there's definitely a silver lining to both the first attempt and then kind of like the really low training period that I took for like a week or so, kind of leading into that, and at the end of April when I was feeling a little bit sick. I think it's all just kind of like cascading down, and it's let me get to this point where I feel incredibly good, right when I want to be, feeling really, really good. So, yeah, it's been an interesting like 10 days of training because really the focus was on recovery, especially for like the first half of that. I probably did two kind of quicker days, where I like jogged down the hill a little bit and then ran up Kalapatar, which is our kind of like local training hill. It's like 5,600 meters, and it's like a nice short little climb. So I was able to do a couple interval workouts on that. But overall, like, yeah, just everything has been feeling good, and I can't complain about that. And so then, yeah, like the physical side, I think leads into the mental side for me. So I get a lot of confidence from like both how I feel on a day-to-day basis, as well as going out and training and having some points of comparison here. Like I said, I did a couple short interval workouts on Kalapatar, which is a climb I've done a bunch of times over the last like 5 years. Like I remember the very first time I went there, I was like, oh, if I can run around 30 minutes, that'll be good. And I think my previous best time ever, which is the FKT, was like 27:45, and I was like a minute faster than that. I was like 26:30. I was like, whoa, that was really fast. And I was like super relaxed, like 1 minute, 1 minute. So like 75% effort maybe, and really felt quite comfortable. And so like just even little things like that really helped me to gain the confidence that I need to like just go up the hill. And it's not just that, but like we've talked about with respect to the keto stuff, like just the easy days feeling appropriate, the heart rate being low, the overnight resting heart rate being low, all that stuff to me just plays into my confidence of how good I feel. And, you know, I think I said like 2 or 3 episodes ago, it's like, even if it's like the worst possible sickest day I had in Kare, I still feel like I could go and, get the Everest record like the next day if I really had to. And so the fact that I'm feeling so much better than I did even the last attempt just makes me feel so much more confident. And I, it gives me more margin for error, right? So like you and I have talked about so many times, there's the fitter you are, the more room there is for stuff to go wrong. And as we saw, like last time stuff went wrong, and now it's like, okay, if something like that happens again, I hope it doesn't. But if it does, I just feel even more confident that I have the fitness to be able to handle it and for sure, like still make up the time, get the record, all those things.
Great, yes. And that it's really important, I think, in one level that you were able to make that initial climb and not, burn yourself out, if you will, that shows A,
Exactly.
that you made the right call turning around, and B, that your fitness is really high, that you were able to turn around and still feel this well just a few days later. Yeah, so that's
Yep.
confidence building as well. Great. Okay,
Absolutely.
so we've mentioned Dawa and how much we revere him on our end, and so talk us through the rest of the team you've got on the ground, including Dawa, and how did it go last time with that team, and are you making any changes this time in the way you're managing the team effort? Because I think most
Yeah, I
people
mean,
see
it's,
you, but they don't realize how
yeah.
much of a team there is behind you.
No, 100%. It takes a village for a project like this. I mean, that's one of the big things I've learned from doing a few big mountain stuff, big mountain projects is like it is a very complicated project. And the bigger the mountain, the more complex that is, and the more people that are involved. So, yeah, like people might see me, but there is absolutely a whole army of people behind me that are supporting me, with whom out or without whom I absolutely wouldn't be able to do any of this. So, I guess the first thing I'll say is, unfortunately, Chris Fisher, my climbing partner, literally just an hour ago, had to fly back to Kathmandu. He's been super sick. He had some kind of flu, kind of bug. Just unfortunately not getting better up here. And as you and I have talked about many times, it's humans are oxygen requiring animals, and
Yep.
when you don't
Yep.
have enough oxygen, it's really hard to get over something sometimes. I found that with my own bug back in Kare, and yeah, unfortunately, Chris, he did all the right things. He was resting, he was using some supplemental oxygen to try and recover at night, and just wasn't getting better. So today, Dr. Ben, our physician here at base camp, made the call to send him down the hill. So he's just back in Kathmandu. So the way that affects me is, he will not be with me, obviously, on that early stretch through the icefall where he took me last time. Luckily, as I said before, the icefall, I think this year is a lot less scary. Knock on wood. It feels less exposed. It feels less hazardous. So we will have a Sherpa here from Asian Trekking. I'm not sure who that's going to be, who will kind of be following me up through the icefall. That's the plan, as just kind of safety precaution, just in case. So there's someone nearby. But I'll mostly be doing that part of the route solo. So I'd say that's the biggest change. And then everything else, like you said, Dawa is really, I'd say, probably the most important person on the team. He's the one who's here monitoring me from base camp. And he's the one who really, like last time he made the call to turn me around. It wasn't my call. I said, Dawa, what do you think? He said, I think you should come down. And so he's the guy who makes those really tough calls, and I trust him 100% with everything that I have to do. He's been doing this for basically his whole life, and he's done all of my big mountain expeditions here in Nepal. He's been back at base camp, so having him on radio at camp so that I can kind of keep in touch with him and ask questions. He can kind of keep an eye on the route. Literally, we have line of sight for a lot of it. And he has Sherpa all over the mountain. So he'll have eyes and ears everywhere on the route. So he's a super critical member of the team. And then Dr. Ben, like I said, he's our physician here at base camp. We also have Dr. Ayu, who is our second physician. He will be higher on the mountain, somewhere between Camp 2 and the summit. He might actually go all the way to the summit, which is pretty cool. He might follow us because he wants to go to the summit because he's like, hey, it's a cool opportunity. So yeah, we might have our MD following us all the way to the summit, which would be great. And then we will have a handful of Taoist Sherpa working for us as well, mostly really just there for safety. So they're not there to, pull me along kind of like a standard client might be roped to a Sherpa, but they're really there kind of behind me following along to make sure, again, in case there's a problem, that there's someone close by. I will be mostly solo on the mountain. So yeah, if something goes wrong, whether that's a altitude issue or a fall or whatever it is, but anything that could go wrong, we'll have people close by kind of looking out for us. So we've really kind of got all of our boxes checked in terms of safety and support on the mountain. And yeah, I couldn't be more grateful for all the people who've been involved to make sure this all goes as smoothly as possible.
And let's not forget about Weather Carl.
Oh, and Weather Carl, yeah, he's an important part of the team for sure.
He's really important. Yeah.
He'll give us the go ahead here, hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah. As we know, weather is a crucial factor at
Yep.
that altitude. Yep. Okay. So take us through the important milestones or landmarks along the route you'll be taking up Mount Everest. And if you're willing, talk about the time splits you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I guess by the time people hear this, it'll probably all be over. So I'll actually talk about times on this interview. But yeah, basically, the important landmarks I'd say are first and foremost there are four camps on the mountain. So camp 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll scooch over and see if for our YouTube people we can show our cool map behind us. So basically, the first step, like we've talked about, is Khumbu Icefall. So that's basically from here at base camp. It starts immediately, and that goes up to just about 6,000 meters. And last time, Chris and I went through just under 2 hours, like 1:58 or something, and that was pretty much perfect, like spot on with our best case scenario splits for the day. Idea is to, yeah, ideally pretty much be right there, be 2 hours at the top of the icefall at Camp 1. And then the stretch from Camp 1 to Camp 2 is the most runnable piece. It's pretty flat like Everest flat. So it's like, I don't know, 10 to 15 degrees as opposed to like 30 to 80 degrees. It's pretty gentle. You can actually, like, I was literally running some of that last time and feeling really good. So that's a really short section, like 45, 50 minutes. And then you're up at Camp 2. That's 6,500 meters. So we're looking to ideally get to Camp 2 in under 3 hours. Last time I think we were just under 3 hours again to Camp 2. So that's a really important milestone. And then, like I said before, we won't do a long break there. It'll just be like a quick grab some fluids and snacks and keep going up to Camp 3. And there's another heli landing. Sorry. Let's see if it's landing behind us.
Yep.
And
The joy of
okay.
Everest Base Camp, and amazing how many
Sally Cat
helicopters go
will
back and forth.
pause one more time. Uh, Wait, maybe it's going downhill. It's pretty quiet. Let's just keep going. Anyway,
Okay.
so from Camp 2 to Camp 3, it starts to get a little bit steeper. You have a short uphill that's, again, pretty runnable for maybe 30 minutes out of Camp 2, and then it's another 45 or 60 minutes once you start hitting what's called the Lhotse face, which is basically the end of this big valley that goes up towards the saddle between Lhotse and Everest. So that's where things start to get really steep. And the pace starts to slow down a lot. Also is getting higher. And then you get to Camp 3. That's 7,000 meters. So that's where we'll take our longer break and go from kind of the, trail running, like cold trail running gear to actual mountaineering gear. So putting on bigger boots, bigger crampons, bigger coats, all that warm stuff. That's the plan there. And hopefully not spend like 2 hours, but that's probably like a 15 to 20 minute break to do all that. And I think that's an important one, is like getting there in around 4.5 hours and getting out of there, let's say 4:45. Hang on one sec. Heli's taking off. And
Another
pausing for one
aspect
sec.
of Everest Base Camp is all the helicopters back and forth.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, so then for me, a really important split that I'm thinking about is Actually, there's not even really a landmark there, but it's basically 1,000 vertical meters to go, which is like 7,800 meters. So it's basically where I turned around last time because I think, again, if I have a even medium day, I think I can get there in, let's say, 6-ish hours to that point where you have 1,000 meters to go. And then for me, looking at the last 1,000 meters of the mountain, obviously that's the most challenging part in terms of altitude. But if I look at my, pace from Manasu and Makalo and other 8,000ers and looking at the hypoxic training and all this, I think looking at a pace of between 100 and 200 vertical meters an hour is pretty realistic. So if I can get to that point in 6 hours, 100 meters per hour is really, 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 really slow. It's like way slower than I've ever gone on an 8,000er. But if I average that for the last 1,000 meters, that's going to take 10 hours. So that puts us at 16 hours. So I think that's a very conservative mark. Yeah, if I can get there in 6 hours, then I have a lot of wiggle room because again, the record is 20 hours and 30 minutes or something. So that would put us, very conservatively 4 or 5 hours under that mark. And, I think if things are going really well and the fueling goes well and we don't have any huge issues like last time, then I think it could be, quite a bit quicker, maybe closer to 200 meters an hour. And then, maybe we're looking at more like 10 to 12 hours overall. I think, yeah, those early splits are the ones that I've done before. So those are the ones that I can really speak to. And then it's really about once we get to that VK, the last vertical kilometer, every 100 meters that we can go up in less than 30 minutes is like a huge bonus, right? And it just buys us more time for, what will objectively be the hardest part, which is from the South Col up the last, 800 meters. Once you're well above 8,000, that's where it starts to get, really hard and you start to like question your choices and, but that's why it's interesting because you do something you've never done before.
Yep. And you have to also balance that with your first rule of your 16 rules that we've talked about many times, which was don't be
Yep,
greedy, right?
exactly.
So how do you think about that if you're starting to go up that first 100 meters of the last kilometer? Are you trying hard to go at 200 meters an hour to give yourself buffer, or are you
No,
trying to be a little conservative as you start to make sure you have enough, because you're getting more and more hypoxic, to make sure you have enough energy and literally cognition to get all the way to the top in one piece?
right. And I mean, it's important to remember from a don't get greedy perspective, obviously the record that we're going for is the 20 hours of going uphill. We still have to get down the mountain. And that's critically important. There's Ed Viesturs, who's one of the most successful American climbers of all time. He was the first American to climb all 14 8,000ers, had a famous saying, which is, getting to the top is optional, getting down is mandatory. And, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
truth in that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of not getting greedy, I think to me, it's all about keeping in touch with that effort and then seeing how the effort plays out, not the other way around in terms of pace. So if I get to 7,800 meters and then that next 100 meters takes me an hour, it's like, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a slower day, but I've still got enough wiggle room that it's fine. It's totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. Like I know that I can go 100 meters an hour forever. Like that part I'm not worried about. And it's like if I like as long as I set myself up in that early part of the mountain, like then the rest will take care of itself, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it is about not getting greedy and not pushing early because yes, not only will there be will those last few 100 meters like above say 8.4 or 8.5, that's all new territory for me. I'm assuming that that's going to be like one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life is those last few hours. So not only am I saving energy for that, but you also have to save energy for the descent and make sure that you can get down in one piece. So that's critically important as well for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to be able to survive literally the hypoxia that will be
Yep.
going on at that point, right? So you've trained a lot
Yep.
to acclimatize yourself and all the work with the gas mask and stuff. So that should help a lot, but you still got to manage that because you can't get too winded, literally, not to make a
Yep.
pun. Yeah.
But there's
Okay.
also a weird
Well,
catch 22, which is that like the longer you spend up there, the more it affects you and the worse you're going to feel. So there is almost like a speed is safety thing where the quicker you can
yeah.
get through the death zone, which is the 8,000 plus meters, the quicker you can get through that section, the better it's going to go. If
Yeah.
you're really struggling, if you burn too many matches and get greedy down lower, then you're moving slower up top, and then it's like a vicious cycle because the slower you move, the more time you spend, the more hypoxic you get, and then that makes you move even slower, and then it's a
Yeah.
compounding thing, right?
And you also said, as I recall, that you need to keep moving, that it's very, very
Yeah,
difficult to run and then pause, or walk and then pause, climb and then pause. It's better to
exactly.
climb slower but steadily because it's very hard to stop and start.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one of the things I learned on Makalu. Is just, yeah, if you can maintain steady movement, it's so much better. Both from just an effort perspective as well as body heat, which is super important up there. All those things. Like if you can just not stop, just even if you're walking unbelievably slowly, but not just be taking breaks every 20 steps, which is kind of what your body wants to do, then you're just going to have a much better time. So that's one of the things I'll focus on for sure.
Okay. Well, as your father and speaking for your mother, we're both excited and terrified. And
Thank you.
as we said, glad that Dow is in your camp. But we are excited to, and it sounds like you're really in good shape, and we'll be tracking, and everybody else can track on tylercandrews.com/Everest. Is there
Yep.
any other last things you want to share before you make your summit attempt?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up with a quick anecdote. I don't know if you remember this, but when I visited you guys right on the way here, to Nepal, like a month or 2 months ago almost now, and you dropped me off at the airport. Uh, the very last thing you said to me was, you're gonna do it. You didn't say you can do it, but you said you're gonna do it. And I've thought about that a lot because like I've gotten a lot of really nice messages from people like, "Oh, you can do it, you can do it." And there's a really big difference between you can do it and you're going to do it. And I've really been thinking about that a lot the last few days, especially where just everything has felt like it's clicking right at the right time. And that's kind of the mantra that I've been going with. It's like, okay, yeah, you're gonna do this. Like this is going to happen. You're going to do this. You're capable of it, and you're going to. And it's, obviously going to be probably one of the hardest physical days of my whole life. But I feel confident that I'm going to do it.
As do I. Yep. We send
Thank
all
you.
our love and everything else. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's a good place to end it. Anything you want to wrap up with?
Just we wish you the best and don't be greedy
Oh,
and remember the other rule, don't
yep.
die.
Don't die.
We
That's
love
the
you
number one
tons and
rule.
we'll be rooting for you and yeah, you're gonna do it.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I will read us out. Thank you guys all for listening. As always, please send any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, hopes, dreams. You can send those to my email, ty@chosky.run, or DM me, Tyler C. Andrews, on Instagram. Remember, you can also read my raw training logs on my blog at tylercandrews.com and get that delivered to your inbox via Substack at tylercandrews.substack.com. Ty's Training is a Chosky Media production and brought to you by the good folks at Chosky Endurance Collective, the world's leader in online coaching, travel, and community for endurance athletes. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you soon. Ciao.